punter on the 60?
It was definitely a unique situation. Unfortunately, we lost them and had to use new guys. I thought that Riley and Matt did a nice job in the game, though. I thought they did, especially with a short week and not a lot of time to get ready. So that was a good thing.
How much does Riley being on the practice squad this week impact things in terms of the overall plan, in terms of getting guys rest? You plan on Riley kicking this week or what's?
Yeah, we're gonna have both guys ready to go, and we'll see how it goes at the end of the week. But Dustin's really like day to day, and we'll make a decision at the end of the week on what coach and AB think. So.
Was it a snub for Dustin that he didn't make the?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes the Pro Bowl can be, a little, I would say, unfair to a degree. I remember back in 2020 when I was in Indianapolis, George Odom was clearly the best special teamer in the league. Led the league by I think he had 21 tackles. I think the next best guy had 13 maybe. And he wasn't elected to the Pro Bowl, but then he was first team All-Pro. So I think that a lot of times the All-Pro teams are a little bit more, I would say, accurate. So, but I think clearly Dustin's had the best season in the AFC for sure, and probably the second best season overall next to Aubrey in Dallas. So, 8 for 8, over 50, and in addition to that, I would say the kicks that he's made have impacted our team and our season and have really put us in a spot to have 11 wins. So I think when you look at that, and not to take anything away from Tucker, but, he's probably the best kicker of all time. Fortunately for me, I think I've coached the most clutch guys will have to go double duty and obviously play in the kicking game. You only have so many guys and bodies to work with, so everyone will be ready to play.
Well, you talked about the way the injuries have impacted special teams in terms of losing guys and having the opportunity.
I think a lot of guys have done a nice job. I really do. I think if you look at our whole entire core, I think we've done a good job of playing collectively together. We've definitely had some injuries throughout the way that have forced us to go another direction. We've had to elevate guys and play in games, and injuries happen throughout the week, and then you have to bring up a guy on a Friday and things like that. But I think to credit our players, everyone has prepared well. And I would say everyone's prepared well and preparing like they're going to play in the game. So, and I think that's been a good thing for us.
Bubba, since we haven't talked to you after that Houston game, just what was that like to try to cobble the kicking game together, and how did you ultimately wind up on D'Anthony to kick off there?
Yeah, so things happen in a game, and unfortunately we had a couple mishaps, and didn't play to our standard. And then you get into a game, and ideally you would like to not have the kicker chase down the runner there. And D'Anthony kicked in high school, so we thought it was a good option for us. Corey had been a little sore there, and didn't want him to finish it out like that. So just made the adjustment in game, and I thought our guys responded. I think on the kick that he actually made, he made the tackle. So that was a pretty unique thing.
Like, do you know, like, do you go into a season like, okay, who's kicked in high school? Like, you know what I mean? Do you kind of suss stuff like that out?
Yeah, and I think, and really, like, I know you've seen over the last couple years, like Justin Reed kicked for Kansas City last year. You know, Agambawale in Houston kicked for them. Like those, I mean, to me, those guys, they feel it. To me, just watching those guys kick. I know Camus Gruger Hill kicked this past week in Carolina. You know, to me, it actually looks like those guys have had like some type of history of playing like soccer, maybe. You know, the way that they actually hit the ball doesn't look like they've never done it before. Fortunately for those teams, they have those types of guys or that ability. And when you have something like that happens in game, the biggest risk is obviously not just the operation, but you know, the elevation of the kick. You risk, you know, getting a block. I know that we had a short kick at one point, and then we decided not to use DeAnthony because, you know, you don't want to risk a block at that point. So, yeah.
Two things. First, with Hopkins and the hamstring, those soft tissue injuries can kind of be hit or miss at times. Is that something you worry at all about him tweaking or re-injuring if he plays this weekend?
I mean, I think there's always risk whenever you're coming back off of a soft tissue injury. You know, I've had them in my career. I'm not a kicker, so I guess we'll have to see how he is. I mean, obviously there's risk when you're coming back from any injury. So
With Corey, he makes it to the Pro Bowl as an alternate. Just how impressive has he been this season? We know field position is such an important part of the game. For him to just be able to be effective and do that for you all season, sort of flip the field, just what's that been like to be a part of?
Yeah, I was excited that he got recognized there. I think he's done a nice job. I really do. He's worked hard, and he's given our unit an edge. I feel that, you know, we've done a pretty solid job overall in that unit, and I think we can be even better, and hopefully we can get him back soon.
Bubba, Shelby Harrison, the block field goal, how big was that moment? And it seems like he has a history of that. What makes him so effective?
Yeah, he's a great guy to have on the unit. He plays with high effort. He's got long arms. He takes pride in that unit. He's very vocal. He's a good communicator with me, and you know, does a good job of in-game communicating on what he's seeing inside. So, you know, he did a nice job of, you know, getting hit. We didn't get a ton of push on that rep, but he does a nice job of getting his hands into the ball flight. So anytime you can block a kick, it's good for the team. So it was good.
In terms of Dustin, bolting after dating Pearson, is that something that you guys had discussed ahead of time in that situation, that you don't want him doing that, do want him doing that? Did it ever come up?
It never came up, honestly, and I wish it would have came up. I wish I would have, got after that one earlier in the season and just communicated better on that if that were ever to have happened. Our coverage has been pretty damn good all year, and playing some young guys inside, and it just gets on us fast, and we don't close the crease down enough. And to his credit, he made a good run. It's not like it was like this elaborate scheme that we weren't ready for. We just gotta play it better. So I mean, the kid does a good job of navigating his way through a tight crease. It wasn't this big hole. So ideally, you would like to have the kicker not chase it down, especially once it gets outside. Just have him pull off, but playing with effort to finish, and unfortunately, we get the injury. So.
Very good.
Alrighty.
level. Again, very happy that we had a chance to pick Joe up, and he's proved that it was a great decision. He's played great, and he's put us in a position where we are now, and we'll get him some rest this week and go from there. But couldn't be more pleased.
Good start with fifth quarterback in this game with Jeff. What excites you just about being able to see Jeff in a game and see what he can add to this team?
Yeah, no, Jeff's a guy that has a lot of athleticism. He's a bigger guy. He's got a strong arm, and I'm very familiar with Jeff from our time together in Cincinnati. And I think with Dorian being moved to IR, it gives us a chance to bring another athletic body in that could fill some of the role that Dorian played. So it'll be good to get him in. He has familiarity with the system, obviously coming from Arizona, and the familiarity from the Cincy days. Some of that stuff is carried here. So I think he feels comfortable with where we are, and we're excited to see what he can do.
Alex, what do you think when you talk about Joe? Like, just, the ride seems so crazy. Like, what do you think to you is the most surprising part that he's been able to come in and have the success he's had?
I'd say probably the biggest thing for me is just the immediate connection with the receivers. I mean, there's some routes down the field that are like handoffs. And that's just a guy that's, like I said before, he's accurate at all three levels of the field. But that to me has been the most impressive, to come in and just be on the same page right away with the guys. It just shows what a vet, what a vet is.
Alex, quarterback poise, it's something Joe, a lot of people talk about Joe. Is that something almost innate within, you played the position, is that something that's, it's, you either have it or you don't, it's not something you kind of develop?
He's always had it, I think that's the biggest thing. He's played a ton of football, so he knows how to move in the pocket. He knows when he's hot, when he's warm, when he has to get rid of the ball. All those things is just that veteran experience. And it's paid off. He's made plays versus cover zero where they had one more than we could block, and he bought time. He just knows how to operate in just about all circumstances because he's seen them all.
Is it baffling to you that a guy with that skill set, with that much left in the tank, could be sitting home on the couch for the first 11 weeks of the season?
It's surprising, really, to see the way he's played. It is surprising, but fortunate for us. Right.
That was probably one of Gerald Ford's best games on Thursday night. Just what did you see from him on those, especially the first touchdown and then the big pass play? Yeah,
he's a tough tackle in the open field. His feet are so quick. His contact balance is outstanding. Broke tackles to score late, made some big runs, broke tackles. It's all the things we've always seen from Jerome. His pass protection was excellent. He was one of the best teammates on the field. He was picking guys up. I agree. I thought it was one of Jerome's best games to date. So look forward to build on that in the future. But he's playing at a high level.
How has he kind of grown into that job over this year?
He got thrust into it early, and has kind of just warmed up to it and has taken on that role. We said it would take a lot of shoes, feet to fill Nick's shoes, and he stepped up to the challenge. Really proud of him. All three backs really had a solid day last week.
Alex, speaking of that, Kareem Hunt with another rushing touchdown now. That's a career high for him this season. Another guy who's sitting and waiting for an opportunity. Obviously, there's different familiarity here with recent years. But was it a pleasant surprise the way he's been able to come in and do everything he's been able to do, given that he was waiting?
Yeah, it is. He's added so much productivity to their offense down in tight, especially. His ability to run hard between the tackles is something that stands out. And especially when he gets around the goal line, it's hard to deny him the goal line. He'll run guys over if he needs to, but he smells the end zone, he gets in. That's just part of what he's done for us this season. He's made huge runs on third down for us, and he's had great protection. So the value that he's brought us this season has been huge, and really proud of him. Not a great circumstance, didn't want to not be on a team, I'm sure, but once we got him here, man, he's been all on board, and he's been a great teammate as well.
How about Dave making his first Pro Bowl? Just the season that he's had, and then finally achieving it.
Yeah, you know how I feel about Dave. I could not be happier, because there's a guy that just done nothing but keep his head down and work. And has gotten better every year we've been together, and just so happy, and proud of him, and I'm glad that he got the accomplishments, because he deserves them. He's really playing at that level, and again, just really happy for Dave, because there's a guy that does it the right way, and it's paid off for him.
When did you know that you had something special in him?
You could see it early on. You know, it was probably just for us finding the best way to utilize his skill sets, I think, and we grew with him as we saw what he could really do. Again, we try to get him the ball in all situations, not only down the field but short, and let him run. So it's probably a little bit of us growing into him as much as him growing into himself.
Alex, it was mentioned Jeff will be your 5th starting quarterback this year. You guys were the first team in NFL history to have 4 different starting quarterbacks this season to make the playoffs. Just can you put in perspective like how unique of an experience this year has been given those circumstances, and what has it been like for you to be able to work with all those guys?
It's been a great experience. It's one I'll always cherish and remember. It's been a unique year, challenging. There's been a lot of adversity, but the room has always been solid. You know, we always feel like we're going to try to get whoever's playing in the best position to win for the team. And I think Kevin has really done a great job of catering how he calls the game to each player. Again, he's always thinking about their strengths and then trying to protect them from their weaknesses. And I think it's a lot of it comes down to how Kevin calls those games. A lot of it comes down to how confident those guys are going into those games. And that's the quarterback room is always a tight room. And we've had multiple people in, and multiple people have stepped up. And again, so proud of Dorian and PJ and Joe and Deshaun. I mean, he played through some stuff that was incredible. So to get to where we are now has been rewarding. It's been challenging, but it's definitely a year that I'll not forget.
See, Jeff is 6'4", big quarterback, got a big time arm. Did that go into the decision making, kind of formulated kind of towards Joe, bringing a backup in like Jeff?
Yeah, I think that they're similar but different. I think Jeff's obviously more athletic than Joe. I don't want to tell Joe that, but I think Joe would admit to that. But that I'm sure that did have something to do with the familiarity with the system, all the things about Jeff that we knew about him, giving him an opportunity to come in and see if he can help us.
Obviously, Jerome was a big part of the run game on Thursday night, but what else do you think was working after the previous couple of weeks hadn't been as successful as you wanted?
That's tough. That's a good defense. We faced a bunch of good defenses prior to that. I think we just we were on that night. I think their scheme that we ran that night was suited for that defense. I'm not getting into the detail, but really proud of those guys. Challenged them earlier that we need to run the ball against the Jets, and I thought we could, and we did, and was proud of those guys.
Some of your young guys have to grow up in a hurry for these playoffs. What do you need to see from said Tillman? He got thrown in, to the fire last week a little bit. So what more do you need to see from said?
He just needs to be himself. Dive into the plan each week and have a full understanding of what we're asking him to do. Alignments, assignments, technique, everything as a rookie. I told those guys this morning, this is not the time to let up. It's a time to double down. These opportunities are special, and you don't know when you get your next one. So. But at the same time, I've been around a lot of teams that get to these games, the playoff games, and they get super tight, and you make a ton of mistakes. So it's finding that happy medium. And let's do our job. Let's just do our job, execute one play at a time. And but that's Ced's job. He needs to just do his job each week. And if he just does that, we'll be just fine.
Pierre's been number 3, kind of the third guy most of the season. But when he, like Thursday, when he got in there, he kind of flashed. Are you kind of excited to see him on Sunday? Probably get a much larger role in what he can do with that.
Absolutely. I mean, he's different when he touches it. You can see the speed. He gets through the hole differently, gets to the second level quickly, and has the speed to take it the distance. So I'm excited to see him get a bulk of play.
I think David's at 81 catches. You talked about that growth with the staff. Did you and Kevin come into the season thinking, we just got to find a way to get this guy the ball more?
Yeah, that was really it. Really, you think about it. You always think about your players. Who are the players, and who do we need to highlight and within the system? And his number is always at the top.
Does it help that to hear Amari talk about the kind of ball that Joe throws and just how easy it is to catch that ball? Did it help David a lot in the final home stretch, and Amari and everyone to have that kind of a quarterback throwing that kind of a ball?
Yeah, I think that always helps. You get a guy with a lot of experience, a Super Bowl MVP, and he's now on your team throwing you the ball. I think, it definitely helps those guys. But, again, great job by Joe. Again, I'm really proud of Amari, too. Getting to the Pro Bowl, I thought he was well-deserved. The guy's always played for us when he can. Played through terrible injury last year, got all the way through, and really happy for him because he's very deserving.
Alex, obviously we talk about the quarterback all the time, with how many you guys have used offensive tackles up there too. I mean, what are you getting out of those two guys right now, and what has kind of impressed you most about the way they've been able to fill in?
Yeah, I mean, they're playing their butts off on the edge. They really are. I'm really proud of both those guys. You know, Hud's been here the longest, and I've seen him develop from the day he got here as the only, rookie lineman that was in that class. And the 3-on-1 work he got with Coach Callahan and Coach Peters and Coach DeCoster. So I watched that growth, and I'm proud of him as well. I mean, he's a guy that just has gone out and blocked whoever they put in front of him. And then to Jerron to come in halfway through and to be able to do what he did. I think we had 1 sack last week, and that was on a fall-down naked keeper. Really, really proud of those guys up front and their protection really the last 3 weeks. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can put that aside real quick. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to itemize. I'm going to itemize exactly. Yeah, if Kevin wants to talk about that, that's his job. My job is to put 11 guys on the field, hopefully, and play good defense.
Notice over the course of the first 16 games, how teams are sort of trying to attack you to counter what you guys have been successful doing?
You know, everybody's a little bit different. I would say this, you know, in my history, teams that try to change to counter another team are on the wrong track. The teams that have probably played the best against us have been teams that have stayed true to themselves and just done what they do best. You know, because that's sort of what we do on defense. You know, everybody has little adjustments here and some game plan things here, and you know, you have that cat and mouse game all around. But you know, if we're forcing a team to completely change course and do something out of character, that might be mission accomplished for us. You know, like when we played on Thursday night, we had a really crappy first series of the game. Countered some of the things that they were doing, and then really started playing some good defense after that. But there's always that part of the game, you know. But we try to be true to ourselves. We try to do what fits our players best, and you know, with little minor adjustments and things like that. But we try not to play totally out of character, even when we're playing an opponent.
Hey, Jim, how do you talk about Greg? You knew he would bounce back after that Denver game. How do you think he's played over this final 4-game stretch?
Yeah, what are we? No. Yeah, 4-0 in that stretch, yeah. 11-5? Is that, yeah, I mean, at this point of year, you sort of lose track. Yeah, I mean, I'd classify him there. I'd say this, I'm really proud of our corners. We put a lot of pressure on our corners, you know. I mean, you go look at the snaps of cover 2 and quarters we play, and we have to be near the bottom of the NFL in those snaps. And those things, a lot of times, you can do to protect your corners. Those guys all relish the one-on-one. You can't play corner if you're trying to hide. And, you know, Greg, he's not trying to hide. Probably the opposite. Brings us a lot of energy. He's always up for the challenge. He brings his teammates energy. And I think, like, I'd say this, I wouldn't trade our corner room for anybody in the NFL.
Jim, how do you think Kevin has done this year as a head coach?
I think he's coach of the year. I mean, I don't even think that's even close. He's just such a steady hand with the team. You know, you guys ever see that movie, Dustin Hoffman, Wag the Dog? Remember that when he was like that, like movie producer, and things would go bad, like with their whole like project that they were having. You know, it would be a disaster. There'd be something going on, and he just kept going, you think this is something? This is nothing. One time I was on a shoot in Istanbul, and then this happened, and it just sort of put it in perspective. But a head coach should be a steadying influence in a team, and I don't think anybody exemplifies that better than Kevin. Good coaches can round out the roller coaster nature, which is the NFL. Right? Like you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows over the course of the season. And, you want to be the person that can level out those, like almost like a good hedge fund manager, and I think he's awesome to work for. I got a ton of respect for him. And, We've had a couple spots this year where we haven't played great, but we've always been able to bounce back. And I think players take a lot of confidence in Kevin's confidence and his ability to handle all these different situations. A lot's been made of the quarterback position, but you can go down a list of a lot of other situations, particularly injuries that have come and found ways to to still be successful and have the record that we have. It's really been impressive.
You guys have had to deal with, like, it might torpedo other teams, not just the quarterback, but all the injuries that you've had to deal with.
I like our culture that way, and I think, sometimes I don't watch a ton of other teams, but sometimes you can see frustration come out of other teams. You can see guys throwing helmets. You can see guys, in scraps on the sideline, coaches and players and players and players and coaches and stuff like that. No, you haven't seen any of that from our team. If the offense turns the ball over, you don't see the defense pointing a finger at them or throwing helmets. And, if the defense gives up a touchdown, those guys, those guys are supportive. And, I think that culture and everything is a sign of coaching also. So, yeah, I'm really proud to work for Kevin.
That's good. Emerson, we know he's had a great year, but are his penalties aggravating to you, and can they be corrected?
Well, I would say this, like part of playing corner is being aggressive with your technique. And here's the thing with some of his penalties. As long as they're not in situations like third down and long, second and extra long, things where you have the offense, really in a jam, right? Second and 20, and you get an ICT. 5 yards, but first down. Third down and 12, you get a defensive holding, first down. And he hasn't had a ton of those, and I think that, you got to push the envelope a little bit when you're a corner because, like it can go the other way. You can be so averse to penalties that you don't cover anybody. You never put your hands on people. And, I think he's got a pretty good balance there. And that's one of the things we preach to guys. We're a get-off team up front. We know we're going to be offsides sometimes. Let's not be stupid about it, right? Let's not be offsides when it's, when it's 3rd and 2. Let's not be offsides when it's backed up. Let's not be offsides after a penalty or, one of those things. And it's the same with corners. They got to be able to pick and choose their spots a little bit. They're on an island a lot. Like I said, we don't protect those guys a lot. We put a lot on them. And there's some good wide receivers, there's some good quarterbacks in this league.
Is the legal context getting beat with the first step off the line?
I don't know if I'd classify them all. I think any time that you have either a DH or an ICT, for the most part, it's where you lost early, right? You lost early, and then you're trying to catch up. So, it's your feet aren't in the greatest position. You cover with your feet, even though there's hands involved in it. But, generally I'm not just talking about MJ. I'm talking about all across the league. Same thing with offensive holding. Guys don't hold if they're in good position, and it's the same thing with DH or ICT and things like that. ICT sometimes, you can just be frontal on guys and – you get collisions, and sometimes, they're sort of iffy calls, but, I don't know that we've had a ton of those. But, I would emphasize again, like, the pressure we put on those guys. And, there's not a lot of help. There's not a lot of easy downs for those guys. There's not a lot of place to hide. Everybody can see them on every single play. It takes a mentality to do that. It takes a skill set to do that. And MJ has that. He's had a great year this year. As it's been impressive to watch. Pro Bowl didn't agree, but we're really glad to have him. We're glad to have him and Denzel and Newsome and everybody.
Jim, you are obviously leading the #1 defense in the NFL this year, and it's starting to be that time of year where excellent coordinators are going to be getting attention for head coaching jobs. Would you like to be a head coach again, or how much would you like to be a head coach again?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy here. I talked about Kevin. I haven't really talked about Andrew Berry or the Haslams, but I love this organization. I love the city of Cleveland. That was such a great atmosphere. 31 years in the NFL. That was one of my top 5 atmospheres, that Thursday night. We needed to share that with the players. We got a lot of energy from them. We needed to give them a little energy, pay them back. Not many chances you have to be able to clinch at home. So, all that. But I'd say this, like in any job that you do, you always aspire to the top of that profession, and I'm no different there.
Back to Denzel. Obviously, he was named to the Pro Bowl last night, but as he's dealt with injury this season, what has he meant to that corner room and his leadership style?
Denzel? Yeah, we're a better defense when Denzel's on the field and healthy. You know, he's one of the best corners I've coached in those 31 years. You know, and he's had a battle. You know, he went through a month where he either wasn't playing or, you know, was playing and he wasn't 100%. But he's rounding out into better physical condition as we get, you know, closer to this end of the season and the postseason, and we need him. You know, not only his coverage, but I think what's been a little bit underrated about Denzel this year is up until the shoulder injury had been the tackling. He made some big hits for us, made some big third down stops, came up and stuck some screen passes, limited run after the catch, you know, all those things. And, you know, it hadn't always looked great over the last month, but now he's getting better. And, you know, I think that's been a part of his game that he was very serious about improving. I think it showed, and I think it will show as we go forward. He's got vet experience. You know, he's another one. You know, we talked about Newsome, we talked about MJ. You know, Denzel's never met a one-on-one matchup that he didn't relish, that he didn't want to win. And we have confidence in those guys. They have confidence in themselves. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to our defense. We talk a lot about our D-line as our engine, and they're the people that give us the energy and the pace of which we play. But you know, if a defensive lineman is out of their gap or misses a play, nobody really notices it, right? You know, I mean, it can get overlooked because a linebacker goes up and fills a gap or safety makes a tackle. But if a corner fails on a play, everybody sees it. It takes a different mentality to be able to live with that. And Denzel's got that. He can play off. He can play press. You know, he's a pleasure to coach. He gives us great leadership. I mean, you know.
Hey Jim, what have you noticed from Ronnie Hickman and D'Anthony Bell behind the scenes and, you know, meetings, practices, whatever, to be able to be ready for what's happening?
Yeah, you know, like early in the season, you know, we were pretty healthy at that position, and all of a sudden it started hitting. You know, we lost Rodney McLeod, we lost, you know, Grant, we lost Juan. And, you know, those guys who had different roles, Ronnie was inactive, even though he played in the opener. You know, because Juan couldn't play in the opener, went in and played really well for us. But, you know, those guys like were ready when their time came. Ronnie made improvements over the course of the year. D. Bell made really good improvements over the course of the year. Was a special teams player, but kept working. And, you know, and those guys and Harmon, you know, I think that, you know, it's nothing like having your starters, right? Having Grant and having Juan and, you know, those guys out there. But it's life in the NFL. You're not always going to have those. And those guys were ready when their number was called. We saw Ronnie making some plays in the preseason, and he's continued that. The thing I've been most proud about both of those guys, they've been so assignment sound. And, you know, Ronnie's a rookie, and, you know, D. Bell's still a young player that's mainly been a special team role, you know, and a lot of times when those guys come in, you know, you're sort of fighting assignment sound and, you know, being in the right spots. But, you know, like, you know, they've been in the right spots. They've had very few missed assignments. They've played like veterans. And, you know, at this point of the year, there are no rookies. And Ronnie has really lived that, you know, in the perfect spot by the coverage. And, you know, that interception and that score, number one, it brought the house down. But, you know, it really, like, you know, I don't know how much of a game it was after that, right? I think that was, you know, like, you know, there's some people talk about the dagger and things like that, even though that was early in the game. Like, you know, that was really a dagger. And, you know, he's that kind of playmaker. All those guys have been impressive. Looks like, you know, we got Juan back for some snaps. You know, get those guys. You know, he's been able to play multiple positions. Yeah, a lot of good things about those guys. Okay, all right, guys.